Thank you. I greet you all in your distinguished capacities and wish you a fruitful 2015. Speaking on behalf of the Women's Major Group, I'm Irene Kagoya, working with Akina Mama Wa Afrika. The ending of poverty in all its forms and achievement of gender equality remains unfinished business. We commend various processes of the post-2015 agenda that have affirmed gender equality. However, we see some recommendations have missed opportunities that will need consideration. It is evident various areas explicitly not covered in the MDGs received less attention, leading to uneven progress or regression, an experience we ought to learn from moving forward. As negotiations commence, we call on member states to address and strengthen the following areas of the framework. Gender equality and women's rights are a central ambition. Structural barriers to achieving it can only be addressed through a standalone goal. It is essential that the gender-focused targets and indicators underpin all goals with critical attention to issues of violence against women, girls, economic empowerment, maternal mortality, sexual and reproductive health and rights, and political participation. The framework needs to catalyze women's participation, representation, and leadership in decision-making across the public and private sector. Any post-2015 target should go beyond mere representation in Parliament to encompass a wide range of decision-making bodies that impact on women's lives. Structural underlying root causes and social norms that perpetuate violence against women and girls must be analyzed in the framework. Although child, early, and forced marriage is an issue of justice, delinking it from the goal to gender equality and women's empowerment may prompt strategies narrowly focused on enactment and enforcement of laws rather than addressing the depth and seated gender discrimination and resulting inequalities. We also would like to emphasize that sexual and reproductive health and rights are human rights. If we cannot control our own bodies, sexualities, and fertility, we cannot exercise any of other civil, political, and economic, social, cultural rights. Universal access to sexual and reproductive health rights will address unacceptable high levels of maternal mortality, teenage pregnancies, transmission of STIs, and HIV and AIDS. Member states are called to address this gap by including reference to the full realization of sexual rights in addition to sexual health. We also call for the framework to encompass comprehensive sexuality education to enable adolescents and young people make informed choices about their health lives. We call for the framework to secure rights of women for resources and assets, including land, energy, credit information, and technology, as well as indicators that measure how much land is controlled by women and men over time. In addition to commercialization, modernizing of agriculture, entrepreneurship, training, and support to SMEs need to be addressed to improve women's livelihoods. Moving forward, we need to commit to human rights to work and addressing the right to social protection, pay for equal value, maternity and parental rights, employment, security, decent work and living wages, sustainable livelihoods, and environmental concerns. A living wage is a necessary element to reduce inequality. One other aspect that we're still calling for is the area on recognition reduction of unpaid care work. We must reduce women's time burdens through recognition, value addition, and redistribution of unpaid care work. We call for co-responsible engagement of state, private sector, communities, households and families, women and men in addressing this problem. We have to address the asymmetrical international economic order that has historically stripped developing countries of resources and limited their domestic policy space. Urgent action needs to be taken to create a more equitable multilateral trading system, fair representation of emerging and developing countries in international financial decision-making processes, sustainable debt solution, and prohibition of attachment of harmful conditionality to ODA and other forms of financing. Accountability and monitoring In finalizing the agenda, we should ensure that it engages all levels of government, stakeholders, and partners in attainment of its implementation. The accountability framework should be people-centered and reflect human rights-based approach to development. The mechanism needs to encourage member states to share best practices. We urge member states to commit to strengthening the already proposed goals and targets and ensure that sustainable development goals are accompanied by a forward-looking and uncompromising narrative that puts human rights, gender equality, justice, and accountability at its core. We continue to urge you to keep the spaces open for meaningful CSO engagement in all the final stages of formulation, implementation, and monitoring of the framework. Let our history, our realities, and our commitments and our aspirations continue to inspire us for a truly transformative agenda for all. Thank you.